Forget the Hollywood ending. The first colonizers of Mars will not die heroically in a sudden hull breach facing the cosmic vacuum. They will die quietly, drowning in the very ground they tried to claim. That is the ultimate cosmic irony. It's a slow, agonizing suffocation by invisible poison. We sell Mars as humanity's next great chapter, but the truth is, it is a brilliant red coffin waiting to receive us, one microscopic razor-sharp crystal at a time. Nobody mentions the actual payment required for staking a flag on alien dirt. That payment is your pulmonary system, and the interest rate is catastrophic. We must stop romanticizing terraforming and start talking about the actual granular terror waiting for us. They keep flashing images of sun-drenched canyons and shimmering valles marineris, assuring us that filtration systems are adequate, that suits are robust. Lies. All of it is performance art designed solely to make venture capitalists comfortable. The reality is that Martian regolith is not just abrasive, tearing at seals and destroying pumps. It is chemically fundamentally hostile to human biology. You breathe that dust, you ingest that dust, and you will begin the process of internal chemical suicide within a matter of weeks. This isn't science fiction paranoia. This is the reality of perchlorates. These are the highly oxidative salts that permeate the entire Martian surface, a geological booby trap spanning billions of square miles. They are everywhere. They are relentless. What exactly does a tiny grain of toxic salt do to a complex organism designed for Earth's soft chemistry? It attacks the core regulatory system of the body, the thyroid. Perchlorates actively inhibit iodine uptake, the crucial ingredient your thyroid uses to regulate your metabolism, your energy, and, most importantly, your cognitive function. When that dust inevitably breaches the habitat, which it will, the crew won't instantly drop dead. That would be too merciful. They will simply start to slow down. Their thinking will fog. Their judgment will vanish. They will become lethargic, depressed, and intellectually bankrupt long before the physical damage becomes obvious. Mars isn't just physically toxic, it's psychologically corrosive. This is the hidden tax Mars demands. It steals your mind first. If you came here looking for comfortable lies about space travel, turn away now. If you value truth over the manufactured narrative, if you understand that the deepest knowledge always hides in the darkest corners, then you belong right here. You must grasp the depth of this insidious poisoning. The dust doesn't just cut your lungs. It sabotages your ability to react to the crisis, trapping you in a fog of apathy until you accept your fate. Ponder that complexity. Every breath on Mars is a surrender. The very dust that gives the planet its iconic colors is the mechanism of our downfall. This is why the engineering challenge of survival is secondary to the psychological terror of anticipation. You know the slow degradation is coming. You watch your crewmates decline, losing their quick wit, becoming dull shadows of their former selves. How do you lead when the poison is literally stealing your capacity to think clearly? And what makes the situation worse? The thyroid controls reaction time. It dictates competence. Slow reactions mean dead crew. Protocols are for sharp minds. Mars provides dull ones. NASA's 10,000-page procedure manual. Toilet paper under these specific chemically compromised conditions. This isn't a structural failure scenario where you follow a checklist to patch a hull breach. This is a mental failure. It's slow, creeping madness draped in the guise of fatigue. You cannot fix apathy with a wrench. The reality is this: when the crisis hits, a sudden depressurization, a solar flare frying the power grid, the response window is measured in seconds, not minutes, seconds. But perchlorate poisoning stretches those critical seconds into agonizing eternities. The brain simply cannot fire fast enough. You understand the necessity of the action, but the biological imperative to do it now has been systematically defanged by a tiny crystal of salt. That is the genius of the Martian defense system. It uses us against ourselves. It turns the mission commander into a daydreamer. It turns the engineer into a hesitant fool. You, watching this, must realize that mission failure is baked into the very ground they stand on. It's not if they slow down, it's when. We plan for every external risk: radiation, meteorite strikes, equipment wear. We utterly fail to account for the internal degradation of the people we rely on. We believe in the sheer willpower of the astronaut. We think human tenacity can beat chemistry. That's arrogance. Stupid arrogance. And we are compounding the error with sheer distance. Now factor in the communications lag. 20 minutes to send a distress signal. 20 minutes to receive an instruction. 40 minutes round trip. The critical decision, the one that saves the habitat or fixes the oxygen leak, must be made now by the compromised mind. Earth is rendered completely useless. Mission Control becomes an outsourced audience. They are watching a tragedy unfold live, but in agonizing slow motion across astronomical distances. They can scream instructions into the void, but it doesn't matter. The crew is already operating in a fog of isolation and delayed response. Every minute wasted is a nail in the coffin. They look fine on the monitor. They sound professional. But the delay is internal. The fuse is burning too slowly. This is the dark truth hidden in the telemetry. If you have the constitution to confront the true biological and psychological cost of our interplanetary ambitions, if you believe that facing this ugly reality is necessary for true progress, then you must ensure you are connected to this information stream. We do not stop looking simply because the facts hurt. This is where we separate the tourist from the explorer. You must stay locked in. Now look closer at the crew dynamic itself. Imagine the habitat during year 2. Who is pulling their weight? Who is just sitting there staring blankly at the dust motes outside the viewport, thinking about nothing at all? The productivity charts plunge. The tension skyrockets. You can't trust your own mind. You certainly cannot trust the person next to you, whose reflexes are shot and whose long-term memory is dissolving. Paranoia sets in like a dense atmosphere. Is that laziness? Is that insubordination? Or is it the salt attacking his frontal lobe? The worst, most paralyzing element of perchlorate poisoning is the doubt. Doubt kills faster than vacuum. You begin to question sanity itself. You look at your colleague and see a potential liability, not a partner. The command structure dissolves not through rebellion, but through sheer mental inertia. The crew starts making mistakes. Small ones first, miscalculating a drill depth, forgetting a valve closure, then big ones. These are mistakes that kill the whole team. The failure mode of the Mars mission isn't structural, it's biochemical, it's personal, it's subtle, unstoppable sabotage conducted by the very atoms of the planets. And the engineers who designed the system assumed sharp, alert, fully functional human operators. They assumed Earth people. They did not account for the chemically lobotomized Martian. That assumption, that fundamental faith in uncompromised human capacity, is the single greatest weakness in every proposed Mars architecture. We are building the most complex machine in history, and relying on components that we know will corrode internally. Tell me, how long until one crew member decides the whole thing is pointless? When the apathy hits critical mass, when the ability to feel ambition, to feel drive, to feel hope is systematically choked out by a lack of thyroid function, what happens then? They simply stop caring. They might see the impending failure, but they won't feel the need to intervene. Fatalism isn't a philosophical choice out there. It's a symptom. Mars is not waiting for us to make a mistake. It is actively forcing us into one. And the horrifying part, the experts know this mechanism exists. They know exactly what perchlorate does to the thyroid, how it cripples iodine uptake. We talk about radiation shielding and atmospheric pressure like they are the only physical threats. They aren't. The real threat is the capsule itself, turning into a pressure cooker for metabolic doom. They dose the crew with iodine supplements, thinking a single pill solves existential dread. Naive, pathetic even. You honestly believe a chemically dead brain struggling to process basic emotion will prioritize the long-term goal of taking its required daily supplement. You assume rational compliance under the worst internal duress imaginable. That is the fundamental, unforgivable flaw in the medical protocol. Mars doesn't just poison the body, it corrupts the very will to survive. It whispers, "Why bother?" every time the alarm sounds. The crew knows the stakes, but the biological imperative to care simply shuts down. The consequences are systemic. Checklists, the sacred scripture of spaceflight, become optional. Redundancy fails because checking the secondary system requires effort. Everything hinges on vigilance. Vigilance is the absolute first casualty of perchlorate. You built a 600-ton machine designed for zero-G perfection, but you brought along a fragile, hormonally compromised primate full of fear and failing organs. The machine demands 3 sigma precision. The brain delivers cognitive sludge. This fundamental mismatch is the ultimate hardware failure. Forget meteor strikes. Forget solar flares. The mission fails because someone forgot to tighten a bolt they looked right at, or they typed a 9 instead of a 6 during a critical burn. Pure inertia. That's the silent killer mission planners cannot model. They can model thrust. They cannot model apathy. Now complicate that with proximity. You cannot simply ignore the slowness or the vacant stare of your crewmate. You rely on them to cover your back during an EVA where one wrong seal means explosive decompression. But how do you trust a man whose short-term memory is Swiss cheese? You don't. That trust, the invisible social contract that holds the entire project together, vaporizes. Leadership becomes impossible. Orders are misunderstood or simply forgotten. And the worst dynamic emerges when the crew starts covering for each other's errors, trying to maintain the illusion of operational capacity for the sensors beaming data back to Earth. They become co-conspirators in their own decay. They lie to mission control. They lie to themselves. The official logs reflect success. The reality inside the habitat is a slow-motion descent into institutionalized lethargy. Think about the repair cycles. Everything breaks out there. Everything demands maintenance. But when the cognitive load is too heavy, when the basic reward mechanism in the brain is dampened, the motivation to spend 6 grueling hours fixing a hydroponics pump evaporates. Why sweat? Why struggle? Let the algae die. We'll just eat the dehydrated packs for another week. This passive failure state is far more dangerous than a catastrophic explosion because it is invisible to Earth until it is too late. It is death by 1,000 cuts. All self-inflicted, but biochemically induced. Mars is forcing the human mind to commit suicide slowly, meticulously. And what about the constant live footage? You know they're recording every breath, every argument, every silence. Earth watches the slow-motion collapse of their heroes. They see a crew arguing about something meaningless, then falling completely silent, the eyes vacant, fixed on the habitat ceiling. Is it mutiny? No. It's chemical submission. We sent pioneers. We get victims. They are high-functioning, mission-essential zombies who can still operate a complex robotic arm, but who cannot remember why they started the maneuver in the first place. You must ask yourself, are we celebrating exploration or simply funding a slow, expensive chemical experiment on human emotional limits? I sincerely doubt the public understands the true ethical bargain being made here. They see flags and heroism. I see thyroid hormone deficiency turning hope into dust. Mars doesn't want pioneers. It only demands decay. We are not conquering Mars. We are paying the biological toll of trespassing. It demands our sanity. It requires our ambition. And it takes them both, atom by atom. They worried about the hull breach. They practiced emergency drills for a catastrophic solar flare. Foolish, a waste. The danger was never external, demanding immediate, dramatic heroism. The danger was always internal, burrowing deep into the medulla, silent, persistent, demanding nothing but surrender. We sent them to conquer a planet using the frail machinery of the human brain, but we neglected the operating system's most crucial dependency, Earth's perfect atmospheric cradle. We treated the human body like a simple piece of cargo, ignoring the million-year contract we signed with this planet's gravity, its magnetic fields, and its intricate soup of atmospheric pressure and light spectrum. Mars is not a neutral environment. It is a hostile processing machine designed to strip away everything that makes us capable of true ambition. It demands attacks. It always does. You see the flag planted in the red dust on the documentary footage, and you feel a swell of national pride. But I see a biological debt collector arriving to strip the crew of their most precious, non-renewable resource, the capacity to care. How long until the arguments stop altogether? How long until the maintenance logs become completely clean? Not because everything is fixed, but because the effort to right the lie is too heavy. The absolute terrifying truth of colonization is this: the most durable thing we have built on Mars is the illusion of functionality. We have engineered the most expensive, highly complex system in history, only to watch it succumb to the simplest possible failure: a profound existential apathy. We spent $1 trillion perfecting robotics, life support, and propulsion, yet we forgot that the mind needed a horizon line, a scent of pine, the random, chaotic noise of the human city, just to stay committed to the purpose. They are not heroes battling the elements. They are prisoners of biology, meticulously managed and medically monitored until the spark goes out. We are running an ethical experiment disguised as expansion, and the subject is the definition of the human soul. You believe we can terraform Mars. You truly believe a species that can't keep its own home clean, that can't manage a 3-month quarantine without tearing itself apart, is going to impose its will on an entire desolate world. I sincerely doubt it. The verdict is definitive. We cannot conquer a world we cannot live in naturally. We can only temporarily enclose ourselves in expensive tin cans and pretend. But the universe doesn't negotiate. Mars does not recognize treaties or human aspiration. It recognizes thermodynamics, radiation flux, and the pathetic fragility of our thyroid glands. The crew will survive, yes, maybe even thrive by the metrics written in mission logs. They will survive until they forget what thriving even meant. They will breathe the recycled air and eat the synthesized sludge and operate the robotic arms until the end of their contracted tour. But they will return, if they return at all, irrevocably different. Not hardened pioneers, forged in fire, but shells. They will look into the Earth's blue sky and see only the vast cold vacuum they left behind. Because Mars took the part of them that understood true warmth. Mars takes the hope, replaces it with routine, and charges the difference to the soul. That is the price of trespass. That is the cost of forgetting where you came from. We did not achieve greatness. We just paid the ultimate biological toll to stand where we were never meant to stand. This entire mission, this trillion-dollar globally televised spectacle, was never truly about expansion. It was a spectacular, scientifically justified retreat. We ran from the chaos and complexity of Earth only to find that the fundamental chaos, the demanding, restless, self-destructive nature of the human spirit, resided in us all along. We simply exported the human condition, packaged it in a hermetically sealed titanium box, and shipped it 140 million miles, expecting somehow that the distance would sanitize the contents. It won't. It never does. They will call it a success. They will point the stabilized bone density charts, the 98% psychological resilience metrics, the perfectly executed robot maintenance schedules. Lies. All lies. Because those logs never chart the slow, invisible atrophy of meaning. You cannot replicate genuine, compelling purpose inside a vacuum chamber. You can simulate gravity. You can recycle water. But you cannot fake the feeling of being vitally relevant to a massive, messy, unpredictable civilization. That feeling is the essential gravity of the soul. On Mars, that gravity is zero. We didn't colonize a planet. We built the most expensive, highly technological nursing home in history. We filled it with highly capable patients, given infinite, precise tasks to distract them from the one immutable truth. They are fundamentally unnecessary to the life of the universe. The verdict is not about engineering or physics. It is about psychology. We proved we can build the bottle. We failed to understand that the fluid we put inside human consciousness was corrosive, demanding limitless horizons and spontaneous texture, which we systematically engineered out of existence. We mistook endurance for mastery. Our scientific reach, in the end, exceeded our spiritual grasp. And now we must live with the monuments we built. Not soaring metallic towers touching the stars, but two-person psychiatric wards floating just out of sight. The price of trespass is paid in silence. The ultimate tax is the slow, cold erasure of what it means to be alive in the first place. You need to ask yourself, when everything that makes you human is engineered away for the sake of survival, what exactly did you survive for? The Mars project was never a launch. It was an elaborate abdication. We didn't seek new frontiers. We sought an escape hatch from the relentless, maddening requirement of building meaning here, where gravity is real and the stakes are deadly. The final blueprint for the Red Planet was not a colony, it was a crypt. A perfectly functional, highly optimized, million-mile distant mausoleum for the human spirit. Look at the faces in those grainy video feeds. They are calm, too calm. Where is the necessary panic? Where is the glorious, terrifying risk? We engineered failure out of the system entirely, believing optimization was salvation. What fools we were! Failure, the true agonizing kind, is the salt of life. Without that essential grit, everything tastes like dust, even survival. The true conquerors of Mars are the spreadsheets and the maintenance schedules, demanding obedience from a consciousness built for rebellion. That is the verdict. We proved definitively that the human soul requires chaos to generate light. It requires friction. It requires the beautiful, terrible inefficiency of Earth. Pity the pioneers who paid the ultimate premium. They bought infinite time at the cost of having nothing left worth doing with it. Don't envy their airlocks. Envy the mess you are in right now, because you are messy. You are doomed. You are still fighting the essential battles that make you real. You are undeniably here, and therefore undeniably alive. That is a luxury